This morning, I walked into my office at Global Tech Solutions, the Chicago skyline gleaming through the glass, unaware that by noon, my world would turn upside down. My name is Zara Thompson. I'm 38, and until today, I was the director of operations for one of America's top software companies. For a decade, I poured my soul into this place, crafting code that protects millions in bank transactions, earning praise from a boss who called me the company's future. But whispers in the halls hinted at a storm brewing, a storm named Daniela, my boss's daughter. As I sipped my coffee, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to unravel, something that would test everything I'd built. 10 years ago, I started at Global Tech Solutions as a junior programmer, a wide-eyed coder with big dreams and a knack for solving problems. The company, nestled in Chicago's bustling tech hub, was already a powerhouse, known for its cutting-edge software. I climbed the ranks through grit and late nights, my proudest achievement being SecureBank, a security system now guarding bank transactions across the U.S. It's the kind of software that hums quietly in the background, protecting people's life savings from hackers. Every line of code felt like a piece of me, woven into the company's success. Global Tech wasn't just a job, it was my legacy. My proof that hard work could carve a place in a world that often overlooked women like me. My boss, Richard Morgan, the CEO, used to be my biggest cheerleader. "Zara, you're the future of this company," he'd say, his voice booming across boardrooms. At 50, with silver streaks in his hair and a tailored suit that screamed old money, Richard had inherited Global Tech from his father, Albert Morgan, the genius who founded it. Albert was a legend, a man who saw potential where others saw obstacles. Richard, though, was different, charming but slippery, his praise often tinged with calculation. Lately, his compliments had dried up, replaced by distracted nods and closed-door meetings. I chalked it up to the stress of running a multi-billion-dollar company, but a nagging doubt lingered, like a shadow I couldn't quite see. This morning started like any other. I arrived at 7 a.m., my heels clicking on the polished floors of our 30th floor office. The view of Lake Michigan always steadied me, a reminder of how far I'd come. I settled at my desk, reviewing overnight reports from the development team. SecureBank was in the middle of a major upgrade, and every detail mattered. My assistant Mary, a sharp 30-year-old with a knack for reading the room, greeted me with a hesitant smile. "Zara, there's talk going around," she said, her voice low. "They say Daniela's joining the company." Daniela Morgan, Richard's 23-year-old daughter, is fresh out of a private university with a business degree. I'd met her at corporate events, her designer heels and smug grin screaming entitlement. "Figures," I replied, eyes on my laptop. "She'll probably start in marketing or something entry-level." Mary bit her lip, her silence louder than words. I brushed it off, focusing on the data streaming across my screen. Daniela was a spoiled kid, sure, but Richard wouldn't be foolish enough to disrupt operations for her. Would he? Global Tech was a well-oiled machine, employing hundreds, with clients from New York to San Francisco. SecureBank alone protects transactions worth billions daily. A rookie like Daniela couldn't just waltz in and mess with that. Still, Mary's unease stuck with me, a splinter in my mind. I thought of Albert, who'd mentored me early on, his gravelly voice urging me to protect what matters. He'd passed away 2 years ago, leaving Richard in charge, but his wisdom still guided me. I glanced at a framed photo on my desk, me and Albert at a product launch, his proud smile a rare treasure. As I typed, my phone buzzed with a message from James, our head of development. "Heard anything about Daniela?" Team's worried. I sighed, rubbing my temples. The rumor mill was churning, and I needed to keep my team focused. "Nothing concrete," I texted back. "Let's keep our eyes on the upgrade." But the air felt charged, like the calm before a thunderstorm. Mary hovered by the door, clutching a stack of papers. "Zara, you should know, it's not just talk. People saw Daniela with Richard in the executive suite yesterday." My fingers paused over the keyboard. The executive suite? That wasn't a place for interns. A chill ran through me, sharp and unwelcome. Whatever was coming, I had a sinking feeling it would change everything. The whispers about Daniela Morgan swirled in my head like a gathering storm, but nothing could have prepared me for the moment my office door swung open, shattering a decade of loyalty in seconds. I'm Zara Thompson, and this morning, as I sat in my Chicago office at Global Tech Solutions, my world tilted on its axis. Mary's warning about Daniela lingered, her hesitant words echoing as I tried to focus on Secure Bank's upgrade reports. But when Richard Morgan, my boss, stormed in with his daughter smirking behind him, I knew this wasn't about rumors anymore. It was a betrayal, cold and calculated, dressed in designer heels and false promises. I was halfway through a report when Richard barged in without knocking, his face a mask of forced authority. Daniela, 23, trailed him, her glossy hair and diamond earrings catching the light. She scanned my office like a predator sizing up its prey. "Zara, we need to talk," Richard said, his voice sharp, devoid of the warmth he once reserved for me. I closed my laptop, heart pounding. "Of course," I replied, keeping my tone steady. "Is this about the Secure Bank 2.0 rollout?" Daniela cut me off, her voice dripping with condescension. "It's about my new role, Zara." Richard cleared his throat, avoiding my eyes. "You've done adequate work, Zara, but Global Tech needs fresh blood. Daniela's taking over as Director of Operations, effective immediately." The words hit like a punch to the gut. I stared at Richard, waiting for the punchline, but his grim expression confirmed the truth. Daniela, a recent business grad with zero coding experience, was replacing me? "Richard," I said, my voice tight, "we're mid-rollout for Secure Bank 2.0. The team's stretched thin, and Daniela," Richard interrupted, waving a hand. "My daughter has bold ideas, Zara, modern ones." Daniela sauntered to my desk, picking up a framed award for Secure Bank's innovation. "This can all be packed by tonight, right?" she said, smirking. "I'm thinking minimalist decor. Your stuff's a bit dated." I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to snap. Secure Bank protects billions in transactions daily. One glitch could cripple banks nationwide. "Daniela," I said, forcing calm, "Secure Bank is a critical system. A single error could—" Richard's face reddened. "Don't lecture me, Zara. The decision's final. You're out." Daniela pouted, her voice syrupy. "Daddy, can we update the dev team too? Their methods are so last century." Richard nodded, indulgent. "Whatever you need, princess." I stood, my chair scraping the floor. "This is a mistake, Richard. Not just unfair, it's reckless. Secure Bank isn't a toy." Daniela laughed, a sharp, grating sound. "Relax, Zara. My boyfriend's a tech influencer. He's got connections." I nearly choked. An influencer? For a system guarding millions? "You have until 5 p.m. to clear out," Richard snapped, turning to leave. Daniela lingered, eyeing my coat rack. "And that jacket? So unprofessional. This office needs a class." As they exited, I heard her whisper, "Told you she'd crumble, Daddy." I sank into my chair, the room spinning. 10 years, countless nights, breakthroughs, sacrifices, erased for a spoiled heiress. Mary burst in, her face pale. "Zara, the team's livid. James and Anna are ready to quit." My pulse raced, but a flicker of resolve sparked inside me. "Tell them to hold off," I said, opening my desk's bottom drawer. Mary frowned. "But Zara, they can't just fire you. You built Secure Bank." I pulled out a sealed folder, its weight heavy with secrets. "Mary, remember 2 years ago after Albert's death, when I asked you to store some documents?" Her eyes widened. "Yeah, you said they were private." I broke the seal, my fingers steady despite the chaos. "It's time to open them." The folder held papers from Albert Morgan, Richard's father, and Global Tech's founder. He'd been my mentor, a visionary who saw potential in me when I was just a coder. These documents were his final gambit, a safeguard against his son's greed. I skimmed the top page, a faint smile forming. Richard thought he'd won, but he didn't know the game wasn't over. "Zara, what's in there?" Mary asked, her voice trembling. I closed the folder, standing taller. Proof that this company isn't Richard's to give away. As I spoke, Laura from legal poked her head in. "Zara, Richards called an emergency board meeting to announce Daniela's role. I nodded, gripping the folder. Perfect. Let's go. The storm was here, and I was ready to face it. The air in Global Tech Solutions' Chicago headquarters crackled with betrayal as I clutched the sealed folder, its contents a ticking bomb ready to upend Richard Morgan's smug victory. I'm Zara Thompson, and minutes ago, my boss fired me to hand my job to his entitled daughter, Daniela, oblivious to the secret I held. As I strode toward the boardroom, Mary trailing with a box of what looked like my office belongings, my heart pounded, not with fear, but with purpose. Richard thought he'd erased me from the company I'd built, but the documents in my hand, entrusted by his late father Albert, were about to rewrite the story. The emergency board meeting loomed, and I was ready to drop a truth that would shake the very foundations of global tech. The boardroom doors loomed ahead, sleek glass etched with the company logo. Inside, I could hear the low hum of voices, Richard's cronies, no doubt, toasting Daniela's undeserved ascension. Mary hesitated, her eyes wide. Zara, are you sure about this? I gave her a nod, my resolve ironclad. Albert prepared me for this moment. Trust me. Pushing open the doors, I stepped into a sea of tailored suits and skeptical glances. Richard sat at the head of the mahogany table, Daniela perched in my usual chair, scrolling on her phone. The board, 6 older men, loyal to Richard's wallet, chatted amiably. Zara, Richard said, his smile dripping with condescension. No need to be here. HR can email your severance. I ignored him, standing tall by the door. Mary set the box down, its contents not my belongings, but copies of Albert's documents, ready to distribute. I wouldn't miss this meeting for the world, I said, my voice cutting through the room's chatter. Richard's brow furrowed, but he pressed on. Fine, let's begin. I've called you to announce Daniela's appointment as Director of Operations, a bold step forward. The board nodded, predictable as clockwork. I raised a hand, my tone calm but unyielding. Before we proceed, can we review the minutes from the last Founders' Council meeting, specifically March 15th, 2 years ago? Richard's eyes narrowed. That's irrelevant, Zara. I smiled, motioning to Mary, who began passing out folders to each board member. Oh, it's very relevant, I said, especially since it contains Albert Morgan's final will and the true ownership structure of global tech. The room stilled, forks pausing mid-bite from the catered lunch. One director, a grizzled man named Harold, opened his folder, his glasses slipping down his nose. What is this? He asked, scanning the pages. I stepped forward, the folder in my hand open to the key document. It's Albert's last act as founder. Before he died, he transferred 60% of Global Tech's shares to a trust, and I'm its sole beneficiary. Gasps rippled through the room. Richard shot to his feet, his face flushing. That's absurd! I inherited everything! Laura, the legal director, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s, stood holding her copy. As counsel, I can confirm these documents are legitimate, notarized, and filed with the state. Zara is the majority shareholder. Daniela looked up from her phone, confusion clouding her smug expression. Daddy, what's she talking about? Richard sputtered, but I pressed on, my voice steady. Albert set 3 conditions for the trust's beneficiary: drive technological innovation, uphold the company's original vision, and protect employees from arbitrary decisions. He chose me because I've done exactly that. The memory of Albert's final night flooded back, vivid as if it were yesterday. He'd called me to his Lake Forest home, his frail form barely filling the armchair. Zara, he'd said, his voice a rasp, I've watched you. You don't just write code, you care about the people it serves. Richard sees dollar signs. You see lives to protect. I'd been stunned, unsure why he was confiding in me. Why tell me this, Albert? I'd asked. His eyes, sharp despite his illness, met mine. Because someone must guard Global Tech's soul, its innovation, its heart. That's you. He'd handed me the trust documents, swearing me to secrecy until the time was right. I'd promised to honor his faith, a vow I now fulfilled. Back in the boardroom, silence hung heavy. Harold adjusted his glasses, reading aloud. The trust activates if leadership threatens the company's mission. Zara, you're claiming that's now? I nodded, meeting each board member's gaze. Richard's decision to replace me with Daniela, who lacks the expertise to manage SecureBank, proves it. Albert foresaw this. Richard slammed a fist on the table. Lies. My father would never... I cut him off, holding up Albert's handwritten letter. Its ink faded, but unmistakable. He did, Richard. The night before he died, he told me himself. The boardroom was a powder keg, and I'd just lit the fuse. Whatever came next, Global Tech's future hung in the balance, and I was ready to fight for it. The boardroom of Global Tech Solutions was a battlefield, the air thick with shock as I, Zara Thompson, stood holding Albert Morgan's letter, my revelation as majority shareholder still reverberating. Richard Morgan's face was a mask of fury, his daughter Daniela frozen in my chair, her phone forgotten. I'd just exposed Albert's trust, proving I owned 60% of the company, but the fight wasn't over. The board members clutched their folders, eyes darting between me and Richard, sensing the storm about to break. I tightened my grip on the documents, ready to unveil the rot Richard had sown, knowing one misstep could cost billions in trust and dollars. This wasn't just about my job. It was about saving Global Tech from ruin. I set Albert's letter down, pulling another folder from Mary's box, its contents a meticulously compiled audit. There's more, I said, my voice slicing through the tense silence. Albert didn't just protect Global Tech's ownership. He ordered a full audit of its finances, completed after his death. I nodded to Laura, who projected the audit summary onto the boardroom screen. Rows of numbers glowed, detailing transactions that made the board lean forward. Over the last 2 years, I continued, $50 million has been siphoned from development budgets to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Harold, the grizzled director, squinted at his copy. This can't be right. Richard, explain this. Richard's chair creaked as he shifted, his bravado crumbling. That's confidential financial strategy, he stammered. I raised an eyebrow, pointing to the screen. Confidential? Like the $10 million yacht docked in Miami, registered to a Global Tech subsidiary? Or the $15 million private jet you bought through a shell company? The boardroom erupted in murmurs, directors flipping through the audit with growing alarm. And let's not forget the $25 million condo in South Beach, I added, billed as a corporate retreat but used for your vacations. Richard's face drained of color, his hands gripping the table. This is a setup, Zara. You're twisting the truth. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a message from James, our head of development. I glanced at it, my stomach lurching. Daniela gave her boyfriend full access to SecureBank's source code. He's posted snippets online, calling it outdated. I held up the phone, my voice steady despite the rage boiling inside. Gentlemen, we have a security crisis. Daniela shared proprietary code protecting billions in bank transactions, with an unqualified influencer. Daniela's eyes widened, her voice shrill. I just wanted a second opinion. My boyfriend knows tech. I turned to her, incredulous. A TikTok influencer? For a system safeguarding America's banks? The board's murmurs turned to outrage. Harold slammed his folder shut. This is unacceptable. A breach like this could violate every client contract we have. Another director, a stern woman named Evelyn, pointed at Daniela. You gave sensitive code to an outsider? Do you realize the liability? Daniela shrank in her chair, her earlier arrogance gone. I thought, he could help modernize it, she mumbled. Richard tried to intervene, his voice weak. She didn't mean harm. It's a misunderstanding. I shook my head, addressing the board. This isn't a misunderstanding, it's negligence. SecureBank's integrity is at stake, and our clients deserve better. Laura stood, her legal binder open. Zara's right. Unauthorized code access breaches our agreements with major banks. We're facing potential lawsuits, not to mention reputational damage. The screen flickered as she pulled up a screenshot from the influencer's social media, showing SecureBank's code alongside a caption. Time to fix this ancient system. The board gasped, Evelyn clutching her pearls. This is a disaster, she said. Richard, how could you let this happen? Richard slumped, his authority evaporating. I trusted Daniela, he muttered, but the board wasn't listening. I stepped to the center of the room, the weight of Albert's trust grounding me. Albert warned me about this, I said, my voice carrying a quiet fire. He knew Richard's priorities. Personal gain over the company's mission could lead to chaos. That's why he gave me control. I held up the audit's final page, detailing bonuses Richard had redirected to himself while development teams scraped by. This isn't leadership, I said. It's plunder. Harold nodded, his jaw tight. We've seen enough. This company's on the brink because of you, Richard. Daniela's lip trembled, her voice barely a whisper. Daddy, do something. But Richard was a ghost of himself, staring at the audit as if it were his obituary. The board's outrage swelled, directors exchanging furious glances. Evelyn spoke, her tone icy. We need to act now to contain this breach and address the financial misconduct. I met her gaze, knowing the next moments would decide Global Tech's fate. Agreed, I said. But it starts with accountability. Richard and Daniela must answer for this, and we need to secure SecureBank before the damage spreads. The room pulsed with tension, every eye on me. I felt Albert's presence, his words echoing. Protect what matters. Richard's empire was crumbling, Daniela's recklessness exposed, and the board was ready to move. But this was only the beginning. The real battle, reclaiming Global Tech's soul, lay ahead, and I was prepared to lead it. The Global Tech Solutions boardroom was a crucible of reckoning, the weight of Richard Morgan's betrayal, and Daniela's recklessness hanging like smoke. I, Zara Thompson, stood at the center, the board's outrage fueling my resolve as I held the evidence of $50 million misappropriated and SecureBank's code exposed online. Richard slumped in his chair, a fallen king, while Daniela's eyes glistened with panic. The directors, once his allies, now looked to me, their majority shareholder, to chart the path forward. Albert Morgan's trust had armed me with power, but the real test was using it to save the company, not for revenge, but for redemption. As the board's murmurs grew, I knew this moment would define Global Tech's future. Harold, the grizzled director, rose, his voice gravelly with authority. This is a travesty. Richard's malfeasance and Daniela's negligence threaten everything we've built. I propose an immediate vote to remove Richard as CEO. Evelyn, her expression steely, seconded the motion. Agreed. His leadership is a liability. Richard's head snapped up, desperation in his eyes. You can't do this. I'm Albert's son. I met his gaze, my voice calm but firm. You were CEO, Richard, but $50 million in personal luxuries and a security breach qualify as just cause for removal. The board nodded, their folders of evidence damning. Laura, the legal director, called the vote. All in favor? Hands shot up, unanimous. Richard's shoulders sagged, his reign over. Laura turned to me, her binder closed. Zara, as the majority shareholder and the architect of SecureBank, the board recommends you as interim CEO to navigate this crisis. The room's attention shifted, a weight settling on me. Daniela whimpered, "This isn't fair," but no one listened. I stepped to the window, Chicago's skyline a stark reminder of Albert's legacy. His words echoed, "Power is to protect." I turned back, my decision clear. I accept, I said, but on 3 conditions. The board leaned in, pens poised. First, we implement transparent governance. No more hidden accounts. Second, we establish an employee innovation fund to reward ideas from the ground up. Third, we give Richard and Daniela a chance to make this right. The directors exchanged glances, surprised by my leniency. Harold frowned. After all this, you'd let them stay? I nodded, glancing at Richard's defeated form. No criminal charges, Richard. If you return every cent of the $50 million, you'll keep a small, non-voting share, but your influence ends here. Richard swallowed hard, nodding faintly. I turned to Daniela, whose mascara was streaked. And you, Daniela, start as a trainee in development. If you want to lead in tech, you'll learn it from the code up. She bit her lip, silent. but her eyes held a flicker of something new, humility perhaps. Evelyn spoke, her tone pragmatic. What about the code breach? Banks are already calling. I gestured to Laura. We'll issue a statement, lock down Secure Bank's servers, and patch the exposed code. I'll meet with clients personally to rebuild trust. Laura nodded, jotting notes. It's a start. Your leadership's our best shot. The board murmured agreement, their confidence a lifeline. Mary, standing by the door, gave me a small smile, her earlier fear replaced by pride. I felt the gravity of my new role, not just as CEO, but as guardian of Albert's vision. As the meeting adjourned, I lingered by the window, the city's pulse steadying my own. Albert had seen this day coming, his trust a shield against his son's greed. Protect what matters, he'd said, and I understood now. Not just the company, but its people, the coders, the dreamers, even the fallen. Richard and Daniela had faltered, but I wouldn't discard them. Leadership wasn't about destruction, it was about building, even from ashes. My phone buzzed. James, reporting the team's relief at Richard's ousting. We're with you, Zara, he wrote. I smiled, tucking the phone away. The boardroom emptied, leaving me with Mary, who gathered the scattered folders. You could have crushed them, she said softly. Why didn't you? I traced the edge of Albert's letter still on the table. Because Albert believed in second chances. He gave me one when I was just a coder. Now it's my turn. Mary nodded, her eyes bright. He'd be proud, Zara. I hoped so. The crisis wasn't over. Banks needed reassuring, code needed securing, but I felt ready. Global Tech was mine to protect, and I'd lead it not with vengeance, but with the strength Albert saw in me. The real work began now. 6 months after the boardroom showdown that crowned me interim CEO, I stand in my Chicago office at Global Tech Solutions, the city's heartbeat syncing with my own. I'm Zara Thompson, and the storm that nearly sank this company, Richard Morgan's greed, Daniela's recklessness, has given way to a dawn of renewal. The scars of that day linger, but they've forged something stronger. A global tech reborn, its pulse driven by innovation and trust. As I gaze at Lake Michigan's shimmer, I feel Albert Morgan's presence, his belief in me, a beacon. This isn't just a company, it's a promise kept, and today I see its future unfolding. The development floor hums with energy, coders collaborating on Secure Bank 3.0, a system fortified with new safeguards. Daniela, once the epitome of entitlement, now sits in a corner, her designer dresses swapped for jeans, her fingers dancing over a keyboard. She's a trainee, learning algorithms under James's guidance, and to my surprise, she's good, really good. Last week, she pitched a security patch that caught even James off guard. She's got potential, he told me, a grudging respect in his voice. Daniela's arrogance has softened, replaced by a quiet determination to prove herself, not to her father, but to the team she once dismissed. Richard, too, has changed. He returned $48 million of the misappropriated funds, selling his yacht and condo to cover the rest. Now a consultant, he works remotely, his reports precise and devoid of the old swagger. I insisted on clear boundaries, no boardroom access, no influence. He's learning to respect the rules, a humbling shift for a man who once saw global tech as his kingdom. Our banks, initially shaken by the code leak, renewed their contracts after I flew coast to coast, demonstrating our new security protocols. Transparency, my first condition as CEO, rebuilt their faith, and Secure Bank's uptime hasn't faltered since. My office remains simple, a nod to Albert's no-nonsense style. 2 photos adorn my desk, one of the original dev team, grinning after Secure Bank's launch, and one of Albert, his eyes crinkling at my first promotion. A framed quote sits between them. Power is to protect. It's my North Star. Mary bursts in, her tablet glowing with data. The Employee Innovation Fund's a hit, she says, beaming. 20 proposals this quarter, from coders to admins. I smile, picturing Albert's nod of approval. The fund, my second condition, has unleashed ideas we'd never have tapped otherwise. A new encryption model, a user-friendly interface, all from the ground up. My laptop pings with an email from Daniela. Can we review my proposal for the banking module? I think it'll boost efficiency. I type back, development room, 3 p.m. Warmth spreading through me. She's learning, not just code, but the grit it takes to build something real. I lean back, the skyline a canvas of possibility. Albert chose me because he saw beyond titles, to the heart of leadership, creation, not destruction, guidance, not fear. We didn't just save global tech, we made it better, a mosaic of second chances and shared purpose. Mary lingers, her voice soft. Albert would be proud, Zara. You didn't just protect his legacy, you grew it. I touch the framed quote, its truth anchoring me. He knew what he was doing, I say, and now we all do. The development room awaits, Daniela's proposal a small step in a larger journey. True power, I've learned, isn't in owning 60% of a company, it's in fostering those who'll carry it forward. Albert's vision lives, not in boardrooms, but in the code we write, the trust we build, and the lives we protect. That's the legacy I lead, and it's only just begun.